But if we are about to head back to choppy stock seas again, blame, I guess, an admiral. Yeah, an admiral, retired admiral to be specific, an admiral who became a very successful congressman, then a stunningly successful senatorial candidate. Joe Sestak is his name. In Pennsylvania, they're calling old Joe a giant killer, the man who brought down a Washington fixture named Arlen Specter, but who, through no fault of his own, could be about to bring down, well, something even bigger, Washington itself, or at least keep it pretty occupied in what has to be the closest thing to D.C.'s version of the little scandal that could, the unmistakable, growing political mess for the White House that is. News today, no less than Bill Clinton was recruited by the White House to offer old Joe a job, to get Joe out of that Pennsylvania Senate race. Now, Joe's long made little secret that he was offered something. He told me so himself. And let me ask you the other thing. That in order to get you out of the Senate race, the White House offered you a job. Is that true?
I got asked that question, as you know, a few weeks ago of something that happened last summer. I asked a direct question. I answered it honestly. And I said, yes.
He kind of left it at that. Inquiring types, though, or not. With Bill Clinton's involvement, this takes on a whole new feel, and for the White House, an eerily familiar one. Even though Congressman Sestak himself said today from the steps of the Capitol that this whole thing is hardly a capital offense.
If I ever thought anything had been wrong about this, I would have reported it.
And he was holding his jacket, which makes it kind of cool. Anyway, too soon to call this Sestak-gate or job-gate, but you can bet your sweet bippy the president would love to just close the gate on this mess. And not just the White House, Wall Street too. Because even though a lot of these guys aren't exactly Obama cheerleaders, they don't much cheer for uncertainty. And we could be looking at weeks, maybe even months, of a lot of uncertainty over a scandal, if you call it that just keeps to have a drip-drip feel to it. Indeed, a drip-drip drama that goes from bad to worse and drags both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue to a halt. You know, it happened back in the summer 1973 when all were fixated on Watergate hearings that asked of a Republican president, what did you know and when did you know it? Increasing talk this last trading day of this not-so-merry month of May that this summer they might be getting ready to ask the same question, this time of a Democratic president. Now to the man at the center, getting to the bottom of this mess. Republican Congressman Darrell Issa, who's demanding answers. And I guess, Congressman, you say you didn't get any from Congressman Sestak today.
Well, what we got was a little closer to some facts. Who offered the job? President Clinton. Who asked him to offer the job? Rahm Emanuel. What was the job? Well, that's a little unclear. Clearly, it was a position. Our research show this is a position he could not have accepted while remaining in Congress.
Well, it was to be on a board, right? To be on some sort of intelligence presidential board.
Right, it's kind of the board that if you're leaving Congress, they might offer you. It's a little dubious. It's an unpaid board. A lot of people in defense like to be on these things.
Well, he indicated, Congressman, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. He indicated it was a board that he could stay on in Congress. In other words, he could do both.
Well, and we've got some conflict on that. It appears as though he might not have been. But the important thing really here was that the statutes. No. He could be mistaken or we could be mistaken. But in the case of the statute, 18 U.S.C. 600 and 595, it's a position being offered. It doesn't have to be for pay. The reason for it is clear. And even in the White House memo, the reason is they wanted to clear the field. So if you want to clear the field and you offer a position, something of value to somebody,
what if it's
people
of no
seek
value?
these positions.
What if there's no pay involved? Then it has no value, right?
Well, positions of value, most U.S. ambassadors, political appointees, spend more than they'll ever earn. There's plenty of non-paid boards that they're lining up for. That's not uncommon. The whole point is, we all along have said we don't want to investigate this. We'd like to have the Attorney General or in the alternative, the FBI, do a proper investigation.
Do you really think that's going to happen? You really think that's going to happen, Congressman? A Democratic Attorney General, and still in a Democratic Congress, for now, is going to move on any of this?
Well, it's very clear Nancy Pelosi is not moving on anything under her control in the House.
She
so
does
we
not
can forget
like
that.
you. She does not like you.
She does not. I am off her Christmas list.
Not remotely.
And I'm off Rahm's, too.
Yes,
Hanukkah is not going to be with his family.
You mentioned Rahm Emanuel, Congressman. I was surprised when I heard Congressman Sestak talking that the last time he talked to the White House Chief of Staff was the March of last year. And I always thought this was relatively recent, March of last year.
Well, it's very clear that Rahm orchestrated this, as he probably orchestrated others. Bill Clinton delivered the message, and it needs to be properly investigated. Now, they may blow me off for the time being, but the bottom line is that 7 Senate Republicans asked the AG to investigate this. These are the same people who will sit and decide whether to move, and this is allowed to be done, whether to move the justice's position that's going to be vacant, or any of these judgeships. The Judiciary Committee does not need to be locked up over an AG who's stonewalling an independent investigation.
You might be right. I don't know where this thing goes. It just seems very confusing to me. But bottom line, Mr. Sestak thinks, no offense to you, sir, that you're wasting your time. And he said as much on this whole investigation earlier. Listen to this.
Darrell Issa has called for an FBI investigation. Do you think anything will come of that?
No, I think was the upshot there.
Said that the people of Pennsylvania. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
He said the people of Pennsylvania care about jobs, and he's right. But the people of this whole country care about a president who said this was going to be a more ethical White House. And the real question is not, is this a violation of a law, punishable or not? That can be decided by independent investigators. But is this an ethical White House when their 1.5-page excuse after 10 weeks for this is other people have done it? That is really their legal defense.
But you know, other people have. I mean, I'm not here to
excuse.
excuse that behavior, and you're quite right. But I've seen ambassadorships come and go to loyal campaign donors in both parties, and key positions. I mean, remember when Joe Kennedy was appointed to run this thing called the Securities and Exchange Commission by FDR? And FDR later said, because I wanted to put the fox over the hen house. I mean, it's not new, right?
It's not new. It is business as usual. It is corrupt. It is criminal in most cases. And it is exactly what's causing the American people to...
You're right. It's criminal if there's a clear quid pro quo. Not so, I guess, if they didn't offer the quo.
Well, here's the problem, is that the statute is broad, it's easy to understand, a position in return for an interference with a Senate race in the case of 595, or any campaign in the case of 600. Those statutes are clear, but let's get back to the important part. Corruption in Washington at a time in which we're borrowing from the Japanese, Chinese, and others 40% of what we're spending, and we're talking about huge new taxes on the American people. Corruption is at the heart of why Washington doesn't work and the American people aren't working. More than 17% are underemployed, unemployed, looking for jobs and not finding them.
All right,
this
I understand,
is a time
but
in which we've got to change that.
Congressman. So I'm going to ask you this. You've contacted the Attorney General Holder. You've contacted the White House. You contacted Democratic leadership. It sounds like no one's getting back to you. You know, that reminds me of high school trying to get a date. No one's responding. Even I took the hint.
Well, I'm sure you're doing better now, but the fact is that it reminds you of 1973 too, right. Doesn't it?
Well, that's
that you've got a White House so arrogant that in fact they can say anything, do anything, and it's okay. You know, Richard Nixon left the White House, and in 1977 he was still saying if the president says it, it's legal. He didn't learn from it. This president doesn't seem to have learned from the various cover-ups and mistakes of the past. But more importantly, the American people pay every time there's a quid pro quo or some wink and nod.
Well, Congress, I'll give you credit. You are like a dog with a bone. You're relentless. We're watching closely. Have a wonderful weekend, sir.
Thank you. You too.